Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Hello, and welcome to the Follow the Brand podcast. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, where we help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. I help anyone who asks, says my next guest, Chuck West. West is a professional resource for you no matter your financial status. He helps individuals, businesses, and institutions reach their full financial potential. Debt keeps us locked into an endless wheel of struggle. Working backwards sets the stage for your wealth when starting on your financial journey. Buying life insurance, disability insurance, and 401k first before buying a car, renting an apartment, and getting a credit card builds a strong financial foundation for you and your family. Understanding debt management as a starting point to savings and wealth creation will put you on the right track. The constant flow of financial information is in a constant state of flux. Staying ahead of the trends is very important in the finance business. Chuck West says that experience, intellectual capital, and his dedicated personal service will help you to meet your life goals. He sees retirement planning as a means more than providing his clients with investment advice. It means helping them maintain the financial independence they've worked their whole lives to achieve. Chuck's consultative process begins with an in-depth discussion of your current finances and future objectives. He'll address issues you might have overlooked and determine how he can help you adjust your financial portfolio to accommodate changing conditions and meet any unforeseen expenses and income demands that may arise during retirement. Working with you to understand your life goals and develop a personalized wealth strategy for today and for the years to come. Working closely with you to guide your wealth and investments through the most challenging market cycles. Creating customized financial strategies for the challenges that today's families face. Chuck West is a seasoned investment professional with 23 plus years in the industry. He has held positions at Fortune 500 firms such as Citibank and Charles Schwab Incorporated, as well as Morgan Stanley. He is an experience in asset management and alternative investments. He is a member of the board of directors for the Tennessee State University Foundation, where he is charged with the prudent management and disbursement of the university's endowment fund. Let's welcome Chuck West to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that people will follow. Good day, everyone. This is the Follow the Brand podcast with your host, Grant McGaugh. And this week, actually, this entire season, we are talking about financial empowerment. I think it's one of those discussions that we need to have as a community, as a family, as one-on-one, because it's one of the most important things that we have at our disposal and resources wise when it comes to finance. But if you don't know how to manage your finances, you will constantly be on a wheel of struggle. And we want to get off that wheel. We want to move it to a whole nother plane of experience. And that comes with knowing how to manage your finances from a certain standpoint. So I've got on today Mr. Chuck West. He's a financial expert. I'm going to call him an expert. He might say other, but I'm going to call him a financial. He's been doing this for a long time. So he's going to help us understand his views on wealth, on financial empowerment, and how we can do better. So without further ado, Mr. Chuck West, go ahead and take the mic.
Hey, Grant. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. As you said, this is something that I'm passionate about. I've done this for years. And when I say years, since the mid 90s. So I've only had one other job right out of school. And then I got into this business and I never looked back. And, I couldn't be happier.
Well, that's what it's about, Chuck, is being happy. It's about being passionate about what you're doing. You find something that really gets you out of bed, and it doesn't take a lot of motivation. You're not just going there and punching on someone else's clock, but you're punching in your own clock. So we want to ask a series of questions to give us a better understanding, first of yourself. We talked a little bit earlier, telling me you're from Chicago and that now you're residing down here in South Florida. And you're doing some things. So first question I would like to ask you is, and then one thing I like to know myself is why did you choose finance as a profession?
Well, so I'm going to go back to growing up in Chicago. So Chicago, a lot of people don't realize it, but you've got New York as a center of finance, but Chicago is like, the second center. I guess you can't have two centers, but Chicago is a pretty important city when it comes to investing, finances, markets, or whatever. So when I was growing up, when I would have spring break or when I would get days off, my next door neighbor and I were the same age. We went to different high schools, but we would hop on the train and we would go downtown. And at the time, before markets became electronic, there was an actual floor for the Chicago Board Options Exchange, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and there was a Midwest Stock Exchange. And so we would go and they would have these observation decks, these observation windows. We would go and we would just watch. And I was just in awe of the whole system. You've got these guys yelling and screaming at each other. They've got the ticker tapes. I mean, it was really a spectacle. And so I didn't really understand how to get involved in that business when I was in high school. But then I went away to college, decided to study engineering. Halfway through engineering, I realized that, my calling was probably finance. And so I just made a shift. And when I finished school, I entered the business and I've never looked back. It's always been fascinating to me because no day is the same. Any day, anything can happen. So that's what really attracted me to the business in the first place.
So you're in, I frame you're a financial advisor, right?
Yes.
And you are, helping other people to find an understanding of their wealth and their options. But there's different definitions of wealth. I guess money is an enabler. Help us understand how you define your brand when it comes to what is wealth. How would you define that?
Okay, so as far as my brand is concerned, and I kind of fought with this for years when I first entered the business because I wasn't really clear. I didn't really have a purpose other than a self-serving purpose. But then as I started working, I started seeing that, okay, there are people that actually need help with this, as opposed to simply myself and my colleagues trying to make money for ourselves. It's like, look, this is, there's a higher purpose here. There's a higher calling. And I went back to school. I got a second degree in financial planning just so I could better understand how I could help a lot of people. Now, what I find very interesting is that as an African-American professional in this business, I feel like I have to help whoever asks for my help. Now, I would love to just service the millionaire clients in our client base, but you have to realize that more people need help than the multimillionaires. You have aspiring millionaires, you have business owners, you have people that just need help with retirement and retirement planning. And so I made a vow years ago that I would define myself as helping anyone that asks. Now, I may not be able to do everything that you need done here at Morgan Stanley, but I can guide you, I can direct you, we can talk about it, and I can use myself as a resource. So hopefully that's the message that has come across to the public when I interact with people. I think it has, because I do get quite a few calls, but I just want people to know that I not only help the multimillionaires, but I try to help whoever needs my help.
Are you doing that for individuals, businesses? Is it both? Is there SMB businesses? Is it multi-billion-dollar businesses?
Okay, so we help individuals, we help businesses, and we help institutions. So what we try to do is, and that's another aspect of our practice here, is institutional money management. So what we try to do is we help colleges, we help universities manage their endowments. So, I'm a board member of the Tennessee State University Foundation. I have business partners and we're working together to help other HBCUs manage their endowment. And then let's move down a step to businesses. So we help businesses with their cash management, we help businesses with their retirement planning, and we help the owners of the business in a variety of ways, not only portfolio management, but estate planning, succession planning. And then we help individuals, people who are simply looking to retire, people who are trying to make their money work as hard as they do. That's an aspect of our practice as well.
Man, those are very, very important things, because money is the lifeblood. That's the blood that cruises through, yourself, and it helps you to sustain yourself, and you sustains your health as well as your wealth. And I have found, especially African American youth, right, and not even it's just the basic in the Black community, is that you're on this wheel of just survival, month to month, week to week, and having very little left over to even think about something like an investment or to work through managing a business and just being able to participate in the wealth machine of the U.S. What kind of advice would you give someone who's just like, look, I want to get off of this wheel, but I need to get to that first rung?
Well, what I would advise you do is really take stock of what you have and what you owe. Debt keeps us locked in to that wheel. And if we could figure out a way to reduce our debt, but also increase our savings at the same time, that's normally the starting point. So, and people will say, well, how do I save anything if I have all this debt? I'm paying all these bills. Well, what we have to do is really understand the debt, where the debt comes from, how the debt is managed. And then from there, we can set up some type of savings plan. Additionally, what a lot of people don't do is fully participate in their employer's retirement plan. It could be a 401k, it could be a 403b, but they need to contribute to that, because that automatic contribution to those accounts, that is wealth. A lot of people don't consider that wealth. And then what happens is before you know it, you have this nest egg in your 401k over a couple of years, 50, 60, 70, $100,000, because what you've done is you contributed to it on a regular basis. Now, what's also important and what I've seen in my practice is that once the money is in the retirement plan, how is that money invested? I have seen people retire and they've kept all of the money in the fixed side of the 401k. And so what that means is that for the 20, 30, 40 years that you've worked, you haven't earned any interest on it. And so, and once I did a comparison, I said, well, I looked at someone who had invested the same amount of money, they're close to $1 million in their 401k, where now this person has 200,000. So you really have to make sure that the money in your retirement plans are invested properly, because that's where the growth is going to come from. And then at times what you may be able to do is borrow against your 401k, pay off your debt, and keep that debt away. Now you're really cooking with gas. Now the money's growing, the wealth is growing. You're able to do so many more things. So that's where I try to start with some clients who are in that situation. But you can work your way out of that by being smart about it.
I like that. That's good advice, especially for an individual. Now, I want to switch the conversation to business. There's a ton of small SMB Black businesses in America, right? And I see a lot of them. A lot of them disappeared during COVID, but because I believe they just did not have, the financial backing that I believe keeps other businesses afloat and having access to capital. I mean, that's really the conversation that I want to have. Access to capital. What if you can shed some light on that sector of the Black businesses in general, or like I said, generally, or what I call SMB, meaning they are possibly sub 100 as far as the number of employees. Maybe they're at the 7-figure, maybe 8-figure mark as far as revenue, or much lower. Access to capital. What advice would you give to those who need that financial backing?
I would say that when it comes to your business, debt is not a dirty word. There are plenty of loan options for small businesses that sometimes a lot of small business owners just don't know about. And if you're willing to have that conversation, we can really go deep in the weeds as far as, finding loans and finding access to capital. Now, I will say that your record keeping has to be on point. Your tax returns have to be on point, and all of the ducks have to be in a row in order to access such capital. So if the business is being run properly, is being managed properly, you can show the revenues, you can show the projections. Chances are with the loan programs that are available now, you can access that capital. Now, for larger companies who are beyond the lending aspect of what a company might need, you can access the capital markets. You can do private equity, you can do private debt. There are a lot of different things that a small business owner can do to access capital. But at the end of the day, as I said, your record keeping has to be on point, and you have to be able to provide that documentation. If you can do that, chances are you'll have a pretty high chance of obtaining the capital that you need to run your business.
This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star Business and Personal Branding Company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand. Excellent. Excellent. I think what I heard from their information, you've got to get the correct information and know what your options are, as money is flowing around us all the time. It just may not be in your sector. How do you get into the money flow, right? So my question for you is, how do you continue to stay on top of all the things that are beneficial to your career?
We're constantly learning. We are always, when I say we, I mean my team here. We're reading, we're studying, we're attending seminars, continuing education. Like my business partner, she's working on her master's right now. It's a constant flow of information. And if you're not, we always feel like, once you feel like you know everything, then the battle is lost. You can't help anyone because things change, tax laws change, procedures change, trading timing, it all changes, and we have to be on top of that. So a big part of our practice is making sure that we're on top of what, not only what people are talking about, but what people may begin to talk about. So information, studying, education is very important to us, and it's a very important part of what we are, who we are, and what we do. Excellent. So let me ask you this, because we come from some similar background, and looking back in time, 20, 30 years, and just helping that younger individual, that younger couple, they're getting out here, and maybe they've gotten some education and they've gotten some skill sets. But I know a lot of people shy away from understanding finance and in business, and because accounting and all that type of thing. But it's very, very important. Help us understand, what are some key things that a person can just take stock of and think about. And think about this: what would you have wanted to do earlier in possibly in your career that that you would give advice to someone else? Well, I would. So what's important is that going back to what I was saying about the 401k and the contributions and so forth and so on. When I first started, I wasn't always in the financial planning part of the business. I was in trading. I was in, placing trades and talking to trade. So there was no planning there. That was strictly, here, these are the orders that need to be processed, get these orders done in a timely fashion. So I didn't really have a clear understanding of what was needed. And what I found very interesting is that I had a coworker, and we were talking. This was a Caucasian coworker. And so we were talking, same age, same, we both graduated from school at the same time. And he was telling me that the car, like his parents gave him the car that he was driving. They gave him so that means that he doesn't have a car note and I have a car note, right? They gave him the down payment for his house. So I'm saving for my down payment and he has a down payment, right? So, and there was just a series of things that he was doing differently that I was doing. And so if you don't have a car note, that means that can go to savings. If you don't have certain items that you have to pay for on a monthly basis, that goes to savings, that goes to 401k. So this kid was able to max out his 401k. And I'm like, what? How are you maxing out your 401k? And he kind of walked me through it. He's like, and it was just normal conversation for him, right? So what I determined at that point is that my kids would be on the other end of that conversation once they reached that age. My kids would not be thinking the way I was thinking at 25. With the job that I thought, I was proud of myself. I got this great job. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's so much more to this than I actually realized. So, I tell that story and I tell that story often because I want young people to really understand that there's more to it than what you're doing. There's more to it than getting educated and having that job. There's so many things that you have to take into consideration, especially when you're starting out. Now, what a lot of people don't do when they start out is they don't take stock of what they have and what they have to protect, because the most important thing that you have is your health. Okay. So what do you do to protect your health? You look into disability insurance. Okay. That is, being disabled is worse than death. Because now you're living and you can't take care of yourself, right? Now, on top of that, what else do you need to do? Well, you need to protect your estate and you need to protect your loved ones. So that life insurance comes into play, right? Then on top of that, you need to start saving. You need to start putting money into your retirement accounts. And then once you have that expense figured out, now it's time to figure out what apartment you can afford, what car you can afford, and so forth and so on. But what I find is that a lot of people work backwards from that. They'll get out of school, they'll have a nice apartment, they'll have a nice car, and then they have to work backwards. Now it's, instead of saying, how much car can I afford, which is what you should be saying because you've got all of these other insurances and other protections in place, they're saying, well, how much? I can't do the insurance because I can't afford it. Well, you can't afford it because you have these other expenses. So we have to really reverse how our young people start out, because that's the critical element to building the wealth. Not buying things that impress your friends. Impress your friends with your life insurance policy, impress your friends with your disability insurance, impress your friends with your 401k, not with the trips that you can take. Because at the end of the day, you really can't take the trips if you're not covered in these other elements of your life. So that, to me, that's critical, and that's really the message that we really have to get to our young people starting out.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when you're starting out young, this is what I have seen in the financial industry, is that especially when people are in college, you're targeted with credit cards, which really should be called debt cards. And that's your access to capital. And really, that is your access to debt and long-term debt with the incredible interest. And then now you're already going to get out of school. You've already got a student loan. You've gotten, to your point, hopefully, you're using your skill set to get a nice, decent job and you got a paycheck. But the money is coming in, is already been determined to go to someone else based on the debt ratio that you're carrying, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you understood in the beginning what is that dollar costing you? I saw some commercials that came out a year or two ago, and it was talking like, wow, hey, yeah, I can finance that computer. It's only $1,000. Realistically, you're paying $4,000 for it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right? And that type of thing. What advice can you give us about how to manage credit and debt?
I think having a credit card or two is good if you use it properly, because at the end of the day, a creditor, when you go to buy a house or if you want to finance a car, they look for some type of credit history. But take the card, put it away. Now that's going to take some discipline. I remember once I had a credit card and I shredded the credit card when I got it. So I didn't use the credit card, but I had the credit account in my credit history, which was a good thing. Now, there were times when I wish I had that credit card, but it was shredded, so I couldn't use it. And I'm not suggesting everybody go out and do what I do and get a credit card and shred it, but you really have to manage that credit card debt early as soon as possible so that it does not get out of hand. You really only need to use that credit card in emergencies, or if you're going to use it, pay it off at the end of the month. Now, I get it. That is easy to say, and everybody says it. But yeah, it does require some discipline. But at the end of the day, you do need a credit history. You do need some way to prove to larger creditors that you are a fair credit risk. But yeah, it's the credit card. That's the hamster wheel right there. That credit card debt. If you can prevent yourself from getting into credit card debt early on, you have taken great strides to building your wealth and a very strong financial profile for yourself.
I think that's good advice you've been giving me, or us, the audience. Very good advice. And I wanted to just ask a couple more questions.
Okay.
And that is, when it comes to your, you just talked about that, your discipline, your belief system, your mindset, and understanding. Because what we're really talking about is lifestyle, and it's long-term lifestyle. How do you set up your lifestyle? You start, a journey in your finance, especially if you're doing it with yourself, or you're now with a significant other, and you're in a financial partnership for the long term. How do you now come to an understanding? I talked to I got a young daughter, and it's like, okay, it's easy to get married, right? Fall in love, you get married, whatnot. But have you sat down at the table and had that financial conversation? What's our financial strategy, meaning for the long term? Can you shed some light on that at all?
Sure. Well, so now we're into marriage counseling and relationship issues. But I will say this. Understanding, we teach a class here, my partner and I, it's called The Psychology of Money. And it takes you through a series of questions that you ask yourself just to see how what your approach is to money. Because everyone is different. Everyone brings a different perspective, from how you were raised, what you saw growing up, what kind of struggles you may have had, what kind of struggles you didn't have. It all affects our individual approach towards money. Now, when it comes to financial strategy with the spouse, I will say this. So I've been married for 28 years. Okay. My wife and I have very different perspectives on money. But we made a vow, or at least I made a vow. I'm like, listen, if this doesn't work out, it's not going to be because of money. Whatever it is, however she sees money, however I see money, look, this is who I put the ring on. And so this is how we're going to roll. But it's important to have that conversation before you get married, before you tie the knot. But it's also important to marry somebody that you love and you think that you can spend the rest of your life with. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't let the money question or the money issue prevent you from marrying someone that you're going to get along with for 28 years. Because you can, and it's funny because I tell people all the time, don't take relationship advice from me. Here's why. I have a friend, right? It's one of my best friends. And so he's like, Chuck, look, I met this girl. I think she's the one. I said, great. Tell me about her. He said, she's this, she's that, and she's got an 800 credit score. I said, bro, marry her tomorrow. Turns out this woman was the craziest woman on earth. And they lasted 18 months, right? 18 months. That's it. And because he took my advice, because I'm the financial expert, I'm like, 800 credit score, that's who you want to marry. So it's not always about money when it comes to your relationships. Money is a very important part of it, but it can't rule the relationship. and eventually things will work themselves out.
I totally get that. It's good. You have to have the conversation. Everybody has different ways of how they manage, make, and spend their money. Some people, the spouse, is very frugal, and the other one, is kind of a spendthrift, but it kind of finds a balance. But you need to at least have that understanding and that communication, so that's important. So at this point, we're going to conclude, but I want you to speak to my audience on things that we haven't talked about yet, but I want you to go ahead and give us some information from your perspective, from where you sit, from what I call financial empowerment, and speaking to my audience. A lot of them are healthcare executives. A lot of them, again, are information technology entrepreneurs, individuals just like you and me. Everybody has to touch this thing called money. And money is changing all the time. Right now, it's conversations, cryptocurrencies, there's things like that, all kinds of the new economy, there's this and that. I mean, there's so much noise out there that people can get confused. However, money is probably one of the most important things that you have to be able to manage in your household. So any other kind words you'd like to leave with the audience?
I always stress developing a plan and sticking to that plan. When it comes to your investments, develop a proper asset allocation and stick to that plan. Don't chase the next best thing. Be well informed and deliberate in how you proceed with your wealth building, because that's really the only way that it's going to happen. If you're all over the place, you'll remain all over the place. So sit down, spend some time, sit down with an expert if you feel that you need expert advice and this is not your area of expertise. Talk to somebody that knows what they're doing, that's been at it for a while, and develop a plan. Without a plan, you have no direction. And if you don't know where you're going, then you're already there, because you really have no direction, you have no guidance, and that's critical to building wealth and maintaining wealth for your financial future.
Wow. And that's so true. Having a plan and having a coach, because it might not be your expertise. A lot of people, they have to, let's be honest with ourselves. There's certain things you're good at, there's certain things you're not. Yeah, anybody can spend money, but it's difficult to make money. Then how do you manage the flow over time? Do you invest in real estate? Do you invest in business? Do you invest in yourself, which I think is most important? You do have to invest in yourself, and then understanding how to weather the storms, because there's no guarantee. Anybody watching, stocks go up and down all the time. Pricing goes up and down. We're in inflationary times right now. How are you, managing through crisis? Financially. I think that's it's super important. So I really appreciate you imparting some wisdom, some intelligence, and knowledge up with us, Chuck. If they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way?
Charles.west@morganstanley.com. I won't give you a phone number to remember, but charles.west@morganstanley.com. That's how you reach me. I tell clients all the time, hey, Tiger Woods has a coach. So we're here to help.
No, and that's what's important. So I know you're in the business, like, hey, you've got $10, let's make it 100. Let's take that 100, let's make it 1,000, 10,000, and so forth to try to manage money. Let's create wealth in our community by engaging with people who know the journey. So that you're the time to success is a lot quicker than just trying to do it by yourself. Or again, if you find yourself on that rabbit wheel of debt, how to get off of it. I think I really appreciated some sage wisdom that you gave us, Chuck. So continue to follow the brand at www.5starbdm. That's B for brand, D for development, and M4masters.com. Until next time, you take care, Chuck.
Okay. Thanks, man.